I got the call at 6:43 a.m. A voice I hadn't heard in months, trembling. Dan, we need you. The AI it wiped everything. Every single client file is gone. In that moment, I didn't say a word. Just leaned back, looked out the window, and smiled. Because I knew this was coming. My name is Daniel Burke. I'm 46. For nearly 2 decades, I was the backbone of Apex Logistics' data infrastructure. I didn't just manage their systems, I built them. Server protocols, internal security, custom encryption. Everything that protected over $400 million worth of client information passed through my hands. No downtime. No breaches. No drama. My job was invisible because it was done perfectly. I gave them loyalty, late nights, holidays missed. And in the end, they gave me an email. A 3-line farewell from someone half my age, who'd never written a single line of code. The new CEO called it optimization. Said an AI could do my job faster, cheaper, cleaner. Cut costs by 40%, eliminate human error. They didn't realize the system I built had layers no AI could mimic. No shortcuts. No documentation. No off switch. So I watched quietly as they let go of the one person who could have saved them. And when the system failed, when the clients vanished, the backups corrupted, and the lawsuits started, they came crawling back. But by then, I wasn't their guy anymore. For most of my adult life, Apex Logistics felt less like a company and more like a second home. I joined them straight out of college, back when their IT room was a closet and their entire client list fit on a spreadsheet. I wasn't just managing systems. I was solving fires before they started, patching vulnerabilities that hadn't even been discovered yet. The older leadership understood the value of that. I remember the former CEO, Roger Dent. He'd stop by my office every quarter just to shake my hand and ask, "Is our fortress still standing, Daniel?" And I'd always nod, because it was. Because I made sure it was. I wasn't flashy. I wasn't loud. But they knew, without me, that place didn't run. Over the years, I built everything from scratch. Proprietary access protocols, automated redundancy, even custom firewall scripting. My designs weren't downloaded from GitHub or slapped together with off-the-shelf software. They were tailored for Apex, line by line. Every part of that system had a reason, a logic, a soul. I trained half the department myself, not just on the how, but on the why. Because this wasn't just about keeping data safe. It was about protecting people's trust. We worked with international freight clients, medical records, even government contracts. One leak, one misstep, and lives could be ruined. And for a long time, they treated me like I mattered. Bonuses, awards, quiet respect in boardrooms I wasn't even invited to. But slowly, after Roger retired, the air changed. New hires came in with buzzwords instead of understanding. They'd sit in meetings talking about machine learning applications and cost-benefit ratios, while I tried to explain how their shortcuts could crash everything. I wasn't scared of new tech. I just knew when it was being misused. But to them, I started to sound outdated, like an old wrench in a brand new toolbox. Still, I stayed, because I believed in the system I'd built, because I believed I still had time to prove it worked better than any AI ever could. Until one day, during a casual lunch meeting, the new VP leaned over and said, "Hey Dan, can you just write down everything you do on a daily basis? So we can streamline things." That was the first red flag. What they really meant was, train your replacement. One that doesn't ask for health insurance or sick days. I played along, of course. Smiled. Nodded. Took a deep breath and pretended like I didn't know exactly what was happening. But inside, I felt it. The slow, cold shift of loyalty turning into leverage. I started getting excluded from high-level meetings I once led. Tickets and issues I used to handle directly were being rerouted to the automation team. A junior analyst I'd mentored was now reporting directly to the new CTO, a guy who wore designer sneakers and quoted tech podcasts like scripture. The writing was on the wall, and I read every word of it. Then came the consultants. Bright-eyed 20-somethings armed with pitch decks and zero real-world experience. They walked through my server room like tourists, pointing out blinking lights and asking me questions like, "Do you really still run your own firewall?" One of them, I kid you not, suggested switching our encryption from 256-bit AES to just trusting the cloud. I wanted to laugh, but I didn't, because by then I understood what this was. They weren't here to improve anything. They were here to justify getting rid of me. The CO, Jared Simmons, fresh out of Silicon Valley, made it worse. He didn't care about history. He cared about headlines. AI is the future, he'd say in every town hall, ignoring the fact that their current system wasn't broken. He called my concerns resistance to innovation. He said I was stuck in legacy thinking. And I wanted to scream, legacy is the only reason your company's still standing. But I didn't. I just kept watching and waiting. Then came the glitch. It was small, a routine database backup that failed mid-process. I flagged it immediately and warned them. Their AI deployment wasn't sandboxed properly. It was touching live servers. No one listened. I submitted 2 internal memos, then a formal report. Jared forwarded them to Data Ops with a note that said, "Is this just Dan being paranoid again?" Paranoid? That's what they called me. The guy who protected their infrastructure for nearly 2 decades. A week later, I showed up to work and my badge didn't scan. My email access was revoked. The help desk ticket system logged me out. There was no call, no goodbye, just a final notice of termination in my personal inbox with the subject line, Role Redundancy Optimization. That's what they called it. Optimization. And as I stood outside the building, the one I'd helped build line by line, all I could think about was this. They just fired the only person who knew how to fix what was about to go very, very wrong. It was exactly 12 days after they let me go. I was sitting on my porch, sipping burnt gas station coffee, watching the morning sun crawl over a half-mowed lawn, when my phone lit up. No caller ID. Just a number I recognized from my old department. I didn't answer. I let it ring once, twice, then sent it to voicemail. 5 seconds later, a text popped up. "Dan, please pick up. The AI just deleted everything. The entire client archive is gone. The backups, they're corrupted. We don't know what to do." I read it twice, then a third time, and I swear to God, I smiled. Not because I wanted the company to fail, I'd spent too long building it, but because in that moment, I realized they finally understood what I had been trying to tell them all along. You don't replace experience with convenience. You don't swap out wisdom for automation. And you definitely don't fire the guy who designed the system from the ground up and assume the code will forgive you. You see, when they offboarded me, they thought they had everything they needed. But what they didn't know was that I never documented the real failsafes. I'd built those deep into the system, encrypted, isolated, locked behind multi-factor keys that even their AI couldn't map. Why? Because I knew they'd try this someday. Maybe not this year. Maybe not under the CO. But eventually, someone would try to cut corners. And that's exactly what Jared did. He greenlit a live AI deployment that wasn't sandbox, plugged it straight into our production environment, and told it to optimize and streamline archival redundancy. In plain English, he told a toddler with a shotgun to go clean the museum. And that AI, God bless its logic, followed orders. It saw outdated client files, unused encryption logs, old security keys, and wiped them clean. No backups. No recovery path. Gone. That's when the panic started. The system began throwing error flags no one understood. The help desk inbox flooded. Legal got involved. And someone, probably that same junior analyst I trained 2 years ago, finally picked up the phone and called me. But by then, I'd already logged in. Because you see, there was one backup server, one air-gapped, off-network terminal that no one even knew existed anymore. It had no name, no label, just a string of numbers and a biometric lock. And it was mine. I didn't rush. When I saw the system collapsing from a distance, client portals dead, internal tools freezing, the entire CRM turning to gibberish, I didn't send a smug message. I didn't call anyone back. I just watched. Because I'd already started preparing months ago. The day they asked me to document everything, I knew what was coming. So I did document, but not for them. I documented every warning I gave, every piece of flawed code their consultants pushed live, every ignored memo, every email marked low priority by upper management. And I backed it all up, legally, securely, with timestamps, metadata, and internal policy compliance. I created what lawyers call an evidentiary foundation. What I call insurance. I had screenshots of the AI making changes to live environments without admin-level authorization. I had logs showing which employee bypassed the firewalls for speed testing. I even had security footage, timestamped, of Jared himself overriding system protocols to force optimization. It wasn't just a failure. It was willful negligence. But I wasn't interested in shouting it from the rooftops. No. That's what angry people do. I was patient, cold, focused. I reached out to my attorney, a quiet man in a quiet office who used to represent Fortune 100 whistleblowers. I gave him a drive. I gave him names. I gave him leverage. Then, I contacted 3 of our biggest clients, not to gloat, but to warn them that their data had been compromised. I explained the situation factually, without emotion, and offered to walk them through what happened, from an outside perspective. That same week, 2 of them filed breach of contract suits. Suddenly, Apex wasn't just in tech trouble. They were in legal hell. The board started sniffing around. The compliance team began reviewing Jared's AI initiative. And someone, I still don't know who, leaked an internal memo to a financial journalist. Within days, the headline was everywhere. AI catastrophe cripples Midwest logistics giant. Insider warned company weeks before collapse. My phone blew up. Not just from lawyers or former co-workers, but from investors, from competitors, from clients who still trusted me. And that's when I realized I hadn't just taken back control. I'd become something far more powerful. I was no longer a forgotten engineer in a locked-out account. I was the man with the map, while everyone else was trapped in a system that no longer made sense. Within 2 weeks, Apex Logistics was in free fall. 3 of their top clients terminated contracts. citing breach of trust and data mishandling. Lawsuits flooded in from every direction: loss of sensitive cargo tracking data, breached NDAs, and even a government investigation into compromised customs records. Every time Jared tried to defend himself in a press release, another leaked document proved him wrong. Then came the subpoena. My attorney delivered a hard drive to the board of directors, fully encrypted, professionally indexed, and legally signed. It contained every system-level warning I'd issued, every flaw in the AI deployment path, and every direct order from Jared to skip manual checks for efficiency. The evidence was undeniable. Jared Simmons wasn't just careless. He was reckless. And I didn't have to say a word, because the truth was already screaming from the hard drive. The board requested an emergency session. I was invited, not as a guest, not as an employee, but as an outside technical expert. The same people who fired me without a second thought now wanted my help to understand the monster they'd unleashed. So I walked into that boardroom, calm, composed, in the same blazer I used to wear when presenting server upgrades no one ever appreciated, and I plugged in the drive. For the next 45 minutes, I walked them through everything. How the AI was misconfigured. How it ignored standard compliance procedures. How it erased client archives by reinterpreting archival metadata as dead weight. And how I had warned them, in writing, 5 times. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't rub it in. I just laid out the truth like a blueprint. When I finished, the room was silent. One of the board members finally spoke. "You built all of this, and they let you walk out the door?" I just nodded. Another asked, "And you're the only one who knows how to fix it?" I nodded again. Jared sat across the table, pale and sweating. His hands trembled. His face said everything. He knew it was over. Within 48 hours, Jared was relieved of his duties. Apex stock tanked 38% in a single week, and I got a formal offer to return. Triple salary, executive role, carte blanche on the infrastructure rebuild. But I declined, not because I was bitter, but because some mistakes don't deserve second chances. I didn't take their offer. Triple salary? Executive title? Access to whatever I wanted? It all sounded impressive, but it meant nothing anymore. Because the truth is, I didn't want to go back to a place that only valued me after I became useful to them again. I'd given them 20 years of stability, and they only remembered me when the AI they worshipped brought the company to its knees. So I walked away. Instead, I took a contract with a cybersecurity firm that did value human oversight. I gave guest lectures on AI implementation ethics. Consulted for companies smart enough to understand that faster doesn't always mean better. And at night, I sat in peace. No alerts, no fires to put out, no people pretending they knew more than they did. I even started a small online course, Human in the Loop, teaching young engineers how to build systems that didn't just run, but think. Sometimes, old clients would still reach out, asking if I'd come back in some form. I'd always thank them for the kind words, and politely decline, because I didn't need validation anymore. The system I built? It stood for almost 2 decades. The AI that replaced me? It didn't last 2 weeks. And that, to me, was enough. In a world chasing automation and speed, never forget. Sometimes the most powerful system is a human being who remembers everything and forgives nothing.